His name was Eric, all-state track star, voted most popular boy in school. And for some reason, he was about to give me my first kiss. I say was because Eric is dead. Boys. Ugh. Not long after Mira and I dealt with Laura and her silly sidekick beauty queens, everything at school pretty much went back to normal. Everything but me, that is. I didn't go back to my miserable self. Mira helped me find my confidence, despite the burn scars that covered my face. I was walking with my head held high now, although, I must admit, slitting Little Miss Pretty Laura's throat gave me an awfully big appetite for vengeance. I shouldn't hold on to that. I need to let go of that feeling and remember not everyone is like her. There are still good people left in this school. That's what I thought, at least. Maybe it was my newfound confidence, but I realized Eric was noticing me more at school. Eric was one of the coolest kids, if not the coolest kid in school. And he was actually starting to smile back at me when I looked over at him. An actual smile, not a look of disgust like most people. It was nice to get a smile from a boy. One day, Eric asked me out on a date. A date. Me. Prune-faced Patty was asked out by Mr. Popular himself, Eric. It's safe to say I said yes. He took me out to a really bad horror movie, which had us laughing more than being scared. He then bought me ice cream and asked if I would like to go for a walk in the nearby woods. How could I say no, right? As I ate my ice cream, we walked along, not saying much. He seemed nervous about something, and I couldn't quite place it. He ended up holding my hand, and I felt like I was crashing down a roller coaster. Never had a boy asked to go on a walk with me, let alone hold my hand. I didn't want any of it to end. As we walked along, he stopped me by a couple of trees. I turned to look at him, and he said, "Patty, I would like to give you something." I asked him what, and he replied, "A kiss." This was it. My first kiss. I couldn't wait. I almost screamed. I was so excited. I closed my eyes and felt like I could sense him getting closer, like our lips were just about to touch. And then it happened. From above, in the trees, Eric's track mates, Leaf and Darren, dumped 2 large buckets of water over me. They all laughed as I stood there soaking wet. "How'd you like your big, wet kiss, prune face?" Eric laughed out of his gaping mouth. Leaf and Darren jumped out of the trees and joined him in pointing fingers and snapping pictures of me. "Oh, looks like we were too late putting the fire out, Patty. Too bad," one of his buddies said. They were all nearly rolling on the ground in laughter at this point. I would have cried, but that was the old me. Instead, I chuckled. Then that chuckle transformed into a hysterical laughter, standing there wet like I had crawled out of the ocean, just maniacally laughing. Because what they didn't realize was that the joke was on them. Quickly, I pulled out my pocket mirror, and as I opened it, I spoke. "Oh, Mira." Confused, Eric asked between giggles. "Who's Mira?" "You'll see," I said, smiling my biggest smile at him. I turned the pocket mirror around for him to look at. Before he could face his reflection, a hand jutted out from the mirror and grabbed his throat. Leif and Darren stood wide-eyed watching Eric being choked, unsure of what to do. The water they had dumped on me had created pools of reflection around me and them. As if another world had opened up below their feet, arms reached out and grabbed Leif and Darren, dragging them into Mira's mirror world. I watched their nails crack on the floor as their hands dragged across the ground, trying desperately to stay alive, but it was no match for Mira's power. Darren had been sucked in, leaving nothing behind but a blood-curdling scream. Leif was somehow holding on to it for dear life, so I decided to lend him a hand. I asked him, "Do you need some help?" He looked at me with tear-stained eyes and screamed for me to take his hand. I did him one better. I raised my foot and smashed it down on his hand and crushed his knuckles into a fine dust, all the while smiling down at him, watching that pathetic fool be dragged into Mira's world for a lifetime of pain as he stared at me with those glossy eyes. I turned around, and there was Mira, full-bodied now, with Eric's throat still in her clutches, and them face to face. The fear in his eyes, the moment locked in them that he knows he shouldn't have messed with prune-faced Patty. That's what it's all about. Stupid boys. What's the matter, Eric? Aren't you ready for your big, wet kiss? And then Mira's face split open, showing her true beauty beneath, and all its bloody, soaked broken bone and sharp teeth glory. Eric screamed louder than I ever heard any girl I know scream. No, he didn't scream like a girl. He screamed like a boy. A boy who messed with the wrong girl. I leaned in and whispered in his ear, "Pucker up, big boy." And before another scream could emit from his mouth, Mira had latched onto his face. Eric's muffled cries for help were all too hilarious to hear as he received his last ever kiss. I will admit, his track star energy showed as he put up quite a struggle, but he wasn't able to run from this one. Mira finally unlatched from his face, leaving a gaping maw where his mouth had been. The life drained from him completely. They say boys will be boys. Not if I have anything to say about it. No more. As I stood there looking at Eric's torn apart face, I thought about how desperately I wanted a boy to like me, to give me their approval, to kiss me. But I don't need them to prove my strength or beauty. I don't need them for anything. The only one I need is Mira. The boys are done being boys, and together we're gonna make sure of that.
Watch new vids every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, only on Crypt TV.